Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Bat Around. I'm your host, Paul Valley. My co-host, Ryan, running a little bit behind today, so he'll be joining us here in just a matter of moments. Today's show is brought to you by Superbook. A lot of baseball fans cashed in on future bets with the Orioles last season. If you missed out, don't make the same mistake twice. Right now at Superbook, you can get the Birds to win the American League at 6-1 odds, or to win it all at 12-1 odds, as I realize I don't have my headphones plugged in. When you sign up at Superbook, use the code PRESSBOX23 and you'll receive a same-day first bet match up to $250, win or lose. That's PRESSBOX23 for your code to receive a same-day first bet match up to $250, win or lose. We're coming to you from a new streaming service over at Restream.com. This is our first time doing the show through Restream. So far, so good. So if you want to do a chat, if you want to take part in the show, by all means, please do so. We can see your chat questions, your remarks on the screen. So very excited to be working with Restream now and for PressBox to bring you the Bat Around each and every Saturday at 10 a.m. Orioles in the news this past week, actually making the biggest signing of the winter meetings as they agreed to terms with closer Craig Kimbrel. That's right, Craig Kimbrel, the same guy with the funny little parrot arm thing, whatever the hell that is, on the mound. He signs for 1 year, $12 million with a $1 million buyout or a $13 million option for 2025. And he is being brought in to be the Orioles' full-time closer. Kimbrel, in 2023, he was an all-star for the Philadelphia Phillies, pitched to an 8-6 record with a 3.26 ERA, 23 saves, 12.3 Ks per nine, which is below his 14.2 Ks per nine average, but up from his 10.8 Ks per nine average from 2022. So trending in the right direction. The Orioles believe that they saw something with his delivery where they think that he can have a really, really big season for them. And look, if you're asking me, I'm a fan of this signing. We're talking about a guy with a career 2.40 ERA, 308 saves, and again, a 14.2 Ks per nine average, 3.7 walks per nine, a little high, but he's Craig Kimbrel, one of the best closers the game's ever seen when he was at the peak of his career. And look, folks, we certainly know that Craig Kimbrel isn't at the peak of his career at this point. However, I still believe he's an effective reliever. And in my opinion, he was the second best reliever on the market this offseason. Of course, the first being Josh Hader, the Baltimore native, who the Orioles did talk to, but that was more due diligence than anything else. You kind of have to kick the tires on that guy, understanding full well that you're not going to give him 5 years and more than $20 million per season. That's just not going to happen if you're the Baltimore Orioles. So Craig Kimbrel, in my opinion, was the next best guy to get. And it really speaks to where the Orioles are as a franchise. 83 wins in 2022, 101 wins this past season in 2023. And then they go out and they give the most money that they've ever given to a free agent in the Mike Elias Sigma-Del regime. $12 million to a relief pitcher with an option for $13 million for 2025. What I see from that is a team that's willing to spend money on the right player. You don't go from, $11 million from Jordan Lyles in 2022 to $10 million for Kyle Gibson in 2023. And actually, I think those numbers were reversed, but I could be wrong. And then the next thing you know, the most money you're giving out is to a reliever that's a number even greater than that. If you don't intend on competing for a championship and showing your fans that you're willing to spend money on the right player. And I do believe that Craig Kimbrel can be the right player. No, he's not the same guy that we saw the Orioles sign. We saw the Orioles sign. Forgive me. He's not the same player that we saw racking up saves and winning Rookie of the Year and leading the National League in saves 3 or 4 years in a row when he was with the Atlanta Braves. But this is a guy who's also only 2 years removed from pitching the first half of the season with the Cubs, where he was an all-star, and he pitched to like a .42 ERA with the Cubs, which prompted him getting traded to the Phillies for to the White Sox, for a potential postseason run. didn't work out with the White Sox, but this guy is still an effective reliever. I think he's better than Jordan Hicks, who is extremely wild. And while he can throw 105 miles an hour, you barely ever know where that pitch is going to end up. Aroldis Chapman, who we've seen on the wrong side of historic playoff moments on the mound more than once, who's also a scumbag human being. I think that it's better. He's better than him. And Robert Stevenson, yeah, I know how deadly that cutter that he developed can be, but we're talking about a guy who's really only had a half a season of sustained success in his career, and now we're expecting him to come in and be that guy for the Orioles. Look, if the Orioles were to still go out and sign Robert Stevenson, I wouldn't be upset about it. But I don't think that for what the Orioles were looking for, and that's a guy to pitch in the ninth inning for them, that Robert Stevenson really fills that need. I think that Craig Kimbrel was the next best guy after Josh Hader. And like I said, Josh Hader was never going to come and pitch in Baltimore unless it's for somebody else as a visiting team. So I'm really excited about the Craig Kimbrel signing. Not as excited as I would be for Hader. Not as excited as I will be when and if the Orioles trade for or sign a legitimate number one starting pitcher. But this was a move that was necessary, and I'm glad that the Orioles made it. Still waiting on Ryan to get in on the show here. But until then, I do want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by Royal Farms. Feed your family gathering this holiday season with Royal Farms' world-famous chicken. Get an 8-piece mix for just $12 or a 10-piece dark for just $15 at your neighborhood Royal Farms. Winter meetings in general, guys, this was probably the least active winter meetings I have ever seen. And it's for one reason and one reason only. Ryan's telling me that he's in the backstage area. Oh, there he is. Let me get him on here. Sorry, Ryan, it didn't show me that again. Working with a new streaming system. Joining us now, Ryan, can you hear me? Is your mic muted? I cannot hear you. Can't hear you. Can you hear me? Sorry that we're having these technical difficulties right in the middle of the show for you folks. Yeah, he's working on figuring out the new layout. You should be able to, if you go, can you hear me? Give me a nod if you can hear me. No, you can't hear me. We had the same technical difficulties with when we were trying to set this up. I'm wondering if anybody else can hear me. Let's see if we can't figure this out here. How about now? Can you hear me now, Ryan? Nothing? All right. Guys, this is the first time using Restream for me. Like, I did some stuff prior to this with it, just getting myself warmed up for it. Let me see what we can do here. We can go to the settings. You know, we've got 10 people watching, 8 people watching, so I'm assuming that people can hear me. Ryan, why don't you try and sign out and then sign back in, and we'll see if we can't get this figured out here. Gotta type to him since you can't hear me. In the meantime, while we're waiting for Ryan to get this all figured out, the winter meetings, Shohei Ohtani took the winter meetings hostage is essentially what happened here. Every GM is waiting for the Ohtani shoe to drop, causing a lack of activity. And frankly, I think that sucks. I don't think we've seen something where, and I want to be careful with the words that I choose here. I don't think that we've ever seen an athlete take the sports landscape hostage since LeBron James with the decision back in the summer of 2010. This is a situation where, like, because I do believe that Shohei Ohtani is a really good guy. And I think that, like, he's deserving of all the accolades and all the adoration that he gets for not only the quality of baseball player, but the quality human that he is. LeBron James' excuse was he was young and stupid. And if he could go back and do the decision again, we know that he wouldn't do it the same way. That was ridiculous. This Shohei Ohtani stuff is essentially the same thing. It's essentially the decision all over again, only he's old enough to know better. Um, we know that this whole thing is it's a huge deal. He's one of the maybe the greatest player to ever hit free agency at this point in his career, doing things that we haven't seen in 100 years in the world of baseball. And I understand that, but the industry is on standstill. It had a standstill on this guy, and it came out from his camp that he was going to be taking secret meetings, and if any of those meetings leaked, he would know that team that he would hold that against that team. Whatever, man. It's people's jobs to figure this stuff out. Like, you're special, but let's not act like you're like from another planet special. Like, be a human being, and understand how this thing works. Um, so to me, the winter meetings just super boring, super inactive because of one player, and I just think that that's bad for the game. What it did lead to was the Orioles had the largest contract given out at the winter meetings. Um, and I just got the notification. Ryan, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What was going on there?
I have no idea. I don't know if my computer just doesn't like this new software. I signed in on my phone. Figured better to be here than not. I had my company Christmas party last night,
I
and
did too.
you texted me at 10:01. Like, here's the link. I was like, I need to get out of bed. So I do apologize for that. But
That's
I'm
all
here and I'm
right.
ready to talk some Orioles. It's been a
That's
busy
all
week.
right. Yeah, man. So we had our first home fest yesterday. So it was an all-day seminar followed by a raging party at the Belvedere. And we had they paid for us to stay at the Four Seasons, which was awesome. It was
Wow.
awesome. I finally got to go up to the Bygone on top of the Four Seasons, and that view, I took a picture. The picture does it absolutely no justice. That view was so. You've been to the Bygone, right? Isn't that where you took your fiance there for her birthday or your anniversary?
Our first anniversary dinner we had up at the Bygone, and there was a storm rolling in that night, so lightning kept flashing. It was really, really cool. A
Yeah,
beautiful, beautiful view.
the view is absolute. So I don't even need to tell you how incredible that view is. So needless to say, the drinks were flowing last night. I didn't drink too much because my beautiful and beautifully pregnant wife, who is now 35 weeks pregnant today, Laura, she was with me, and the people kept saying to her, "Why are you here? You are so pregnant." She
Right.
was there for me. She was doing her part as my loving and adoring wife. Um, she was there 100% for me, and she was so beautiful. Oh my gosh, she took my breath away more than that view did. And so I didn't drink too much. I imbibed for sure, but she wanted to go back at about 9:30 because she still had to get that poor woman. She still has to get up and work 12-hour shifts at the hospital, so
Yeah.
she had to get up. And I thought that she would at least sleep in. She left the hotel, which is 20 minutes away from where she works, at the same time that she leaves our house, which is 45 minutes away. But I think it was probably because she was trying to find a Starbucks on her way there. The Starbucks by our house is literally right across the street. So,
Yeah.
but we had an awesome time. The whole point of that long, drawn out story is that um, I was in the hotel and had to get out. Like, we left our dog at the house. He didn't sleep all night. I had my
Mm-hmm.
nephew come over and feed him and let him out. Like, feed him, let him out, and I told him, don't put him in the crate. He'll be fine. My wife checked the camera, and all night he just paced back and forth, looking out the window, wondering where we were.
Oh
And
man,
oh my god, I felt so bad. So when
breaks
she
my
texted,
heart.
oh, it was heartbreaking, man. So she texted me that at like 5 to 7. I was like, all right, I'm on my way home. So I got home about 8 this morning, and he's happy. That's why I'm in the room I'm in now, so that I could hang out with him. But he's not even anywhere near me now. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, yeah, I would have texted you about the show. I would have sent you the notes a lot sooner, but I had a party last night too.
Yeah, no, you're good. It's funny. I was thinking about it yesterday during the day. So I ended up going into work yesterday on my day off to catch up on some things because this was a wild week, and I was thinking like, oh, I should throw some notes on there for the show tomorrow, and then by the time I woke up this morning, it was the last thing on my mind. So I appreciate the text. I apologize for being late. And of course, it was all escalated by, my computer not responding to my audio input, output, any of that. So I'll get that sorted out. But Paul, it was a busy week for the Orioles. A lot of back and forth going on.
Yeah, man. But I just gave this whole spiel about Craig Kimbrel, and we saw some fan reactions, Ryan, to Craig Kimbrel, and a lot of negativity. A lot of people saying bottom of the barrel signing. Why don't the Orioles go get legit players? And I'm like, the last time I checked, Craig Kimbrel is still a legit pitcher. Is he the same guy who was the most dominant closer in baseball for 5 years, about 5 to 10 years ago? No, he's not still that guy, but he's still maybe 80, 85% of that guy, which is better than a lot of relievers in baseball. Ryan, in my opinion, he was the second best reliever on the market. The Orioles did their due diligence, kicking the tires on Josh Hader. 5 years, 105 million plus was never going to come from the Orioles to Hader. So they went on and sounded, in my opinion, the second best guy in Craig Kimbrel. Your thoughts on the fans' reaction and your reaction to the signing?
I don't love it, but I've kind of been able to talk myself into it a little bit. He's up there in age, but he's still a very productive pitcher, by and large. He'll have some outings where everything goes awry. He'll also have a bunch of 3 up, 3 down, striking out the side. He still pitches very, very well, and hasn't had an ERA over 4 for quite some time. I think his ZiPS projection is like 3.95, which not great for a closer, but you'll take it. You're trying to replace Felix Bautista. That's never going to be easy.
Yeah.
And as far as the fan reaction, like, I get it. Like, I understand. It feels like a typical Orioles offseason signing. And when you look at it in context with the Yankees going out and getting Juan Soto, the Blue Jays seem likely to land Shohei Ohtani. The Red Sox are in talks with, a bunch of other big free agents. It's, it can be a little frustrating, but I do think the Orioles are going to continue to be active. I don't think Kimbrel is going to be the only guy we bring aboard. And you also have to consider, which I think a lot of Orioles fans are largely ignoring, Dylan Tate is healthy and coming back. He has the potential to be a very good 7th, 8th, maybe 9th inning reliever. So, with him coming back to the bullpen as well, throwing Kimbrel in the mix, I think the Orioles are doing just fine to replace the back end of the bullpen. That seems like it's going to be a problem. I don't think it's going to be as big a problem as we're making it out to be.
I agree. I look at it. I look at the signing, and it was just last week on the show we were talking about the possibility of Craig Kimbrel. And thank you, Mom. My mom confirmed that she can hear us on, so that's good news.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. We were just talking last week about how we'd be for a Craig Kimbrel signing as long as he's not the closer by default. As long as he's not just handed that job. Well, he was handed that job. They came out and said that the intent is that he's going to be their closer. Like, people are talking about how he's going to be terrible and wait till June, wait till July. Look, if he's terrible, they're not going to let that leash go that long.
Right.
They're going to replace him. They're going to put him in lower leverage situations and see if he can rebound, like they did with Cionel Perez last year. We saw Cole Irvin come to the Orioles in a trade last offseason, or it was just before spring training. We saw him come to the Orioles in a trade. He got 3 starts at the beginning of the year, and he was terrible, and he got sent down to the minors. So for me, it's if he does suck, he's not going to be allowed to continue in that role. And if he doesn't suck, they got a really good closer. And Mike Elias said, we saw some things with his delivery where we think that we can really help him, and he's going to have a really big season for us. We saw what they did with Cionel Perez. This guy had a career ERA of like 7 or 8 when he came to the Orioles, and all of a sudden he's one of the most dominant left-handed relievers in baseball right now. And I know that April and May this past season sucked for him, but from June on, that dude was one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah.
And we saw what he did with a 1.5 ERA in 2022. And that's a guy who was nobody. And the Orioles did that with him. What do you think they're going to do with a guy like Craig Kimbrel?
It's the same with Yennier Cano. He was awful before he came over here. He walked everybody. I think he had a 20-something ERA the year before in a real small sample size. He walked more batters than innings pitched. It was absurd. And then he comes here, and for the first 2 months of the season, he's absurdly dominant, and he gets an all-star bid.
Yep.
And the Orioles have a way with figuring out how to make bullpen pitchers dominant. And if they can't keep Kimbrel at least productive, then that's a problem. But like you said, Paul, if he's struggling as the closer, he won't stay in the closer role. They have
Right.
other guys that they can plug in.
Somebody brought up a great point. We saw it back in 2014. Tommy Hunter was the closer to start the year, and he started blowing saves left and right. And then Zach Britton becomes your closer, and he helps the Orioles win 96 games and an AL East division title. Yeah, I think he had like 36 saves that year, and he didn't become the closer till like mid-May. So, this isn't something that when the Orioles, this team, they know what they're supposed to do this coming year. They know what the goal is. And the goal is not just to get to the playoffs anymore. The goal is to go win a World Series. And they know that. They're not going to let a bad closer be a bad closer for 2 months. They're going to give an opportunity for the first month. And if he sucks, you're going to see somebody else in that role. You're going to see Yennier Cano. You're going to see CNL Perez, maybe DL Hall or Tyler Wells. They're going to have options there. So for me, I'm not worried in the least about the Kimbrel signing. I think it's a good signing. And if he's not good, okay. But what I really see from this is the Orioles giving the most money to any free agent that this regime has given, and it's to a relief pitcher. $12 million for this year, either a $1 million buyout or a $13 million option for next year. To me, that's a good sign that the Orioles are willing to spend money on the right player. I don't think it means that you're getting Shohei Ohtani or Cody Bellinger, but I think it means if the Orioles have a big need at a position, that they're going to throw some money to fill that need, which is a nice sign, in my opinion.
For sure. And then, you look at what they're adding to the bullpen. I mentioned Tate, I mentioned Craig Kimbrel. What they're trying to prevent, they're not necessarily trying to, in my mind, they're not trying to replace Felix Bautista. You can't replace the best closer in the game. But they're working toward having the bullpen depth, which would allow us to prevent situations in which guys like Austin Voth are coming in big spots.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're building this bullpen to be, a place where you have reliable guys who could be 8th or 9th inning guys on a lot of teams who are available in the 5th, 6th, 7th innings. And I think that's going to bode well for the Orioles down the stretch. As, we saw it last year. There were games where Brandon Hyde's bringing in someone who's not very good in a situation in which we need a shutdown inning, and it wouldn't happen. So I like what they're doing, building the bullpen, and I hope to see, like you said, some of that money start to be allocated toward other needs, and I think we'll see that happen in the next few weeks and months.
I do think that we'll see that. I told you that I thought that the Orioles would be trading for Dylan Cease within the first couple of days of the winter meetings. That did not happen, but that's mostly because of Shohei Ohtani. Yeah. Shohei Ohtani has held, and I was talking about this when you were trying to get onto the show. Shohei Ohtani he completely took the baseball world hostage, took the winter meetings hostage. It was the least active winter meetings I've ever seen. And that's proven by the fact that the Orioles had the largest contract given out of the winter meetings, and it's $12 million for 1 year. Craig Kimbrel with a $13 million option for 2025, and that was the largest contract given out at the winter meetings. I personally think that it's the decision 2.0, just like the LeBron thing. LeBron's excuse was that he was stupid. He was a 22, 23-year-old kid who thought the world revolved around him. He's even said that he regrets doing the decision now that he's older and realizes what the hell he was doing. Shohei Ohtani doesn't have that excuse. This is a 29, 30-year-old man who knows that he's the best player in baseball. We all appreciate just how incredible he is on the field on both sides of the baseball. And we appreciate the fact that he just seems to be a quality human being. I think this is a mistake, the way he's handling his free agency. I'm having secret meetings with teams, and his camp is going to hold it against the team if those secret meetings get out. Now we're hearing that he's on a flight to Toronto, and then that report is false. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but it really made for a very lackluster and very boring winter meetings. Your thoughts on not Ohtani necessarily, but on the winter meetings because of the Ohtani backlash?
Yeah, it was an interesting winter meetings for me because, like you said, the Orioles give out the biggest contract. It's a 1 year, $12 million deal, and nothing else of real substance happened.
Right.
It was I've got Twitter notifications on for all the big writers and trying to figure out who's going where, who's signing with who's getting traded. And it next thing I knew, the Rule 5 draft was taking place, and then Rock is posting the Orioles media selfie that night, and it's done. It's over. The winter meetings are done.
Yeah.
And it was like, and speaking of the Rule 5 draft, for the first time since 2005, the Orioles did not pick a player in the major league phase.
Which is a big deal.
It is. It is. I think it means that they believe in their current roster. They don't need to have, someone that they're kind of handcuffed to keep on the roster all season. So I like that they didn't take anybody. There wasn't anybody that I was really super interested in anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm good with that. But yeah, it was weird. The winter meetings come around and you expect tons and tons of movement. And the fact of the matter is we didn't have that this year. I went to the winter meetings in San Diego in 2019. Because that's when I had moved out to Arizona to pursue scouting before COVID. But I was out there in 2019, and things were happening left and right. I couldn't walk back to my hotel without hearing about some kind of signing. I was standing behind John Heyman on the MLB Network broadcast when he was reporting that Anthony Rendon had signed that massive contract with the Angels.
Wow.
There was stuff going on seemingly nonstop. And this year, the Orioles get Kimbrel. There were a couple other signings, and then it's like, all right, no one huge is doing anything.
Yeah.
It was more of the same reports from the offseason where it's, oh, this team is interested in this person, and like nothing of substance. So it was, boring to say the least.
It was just like my company party last night was First Home Fest. This was Shohei Ohtani Fest. And all I saw on my timeline was, where's Ohtani going to sign? Is he going to the Dodgers, the Giants, the Yankees, the Angels, the Blue Jays? Dave Roberts said, yes, we had a meeting with Ohtani. Oh, are you guys out of the running now? Because we know what he said, and it's just like, I got so tired of it because, to be perfectly honest with you, as a baseball fan, as long as he doesn't end up in the American League East, I don't care where Shohei Ohtani goes. He's still going to be polarizing. He's still going to be the best player in baseball. Everybody's going to talk about him no matter where he goes. He could end up on the Kansas City Royals, and all of a sudden they'd be the number one talked about team in baseball. Probably behind the Yankees. Everybody just talks about the Yankees nonstop. But it really just threw a wrench in the spokes of the winter meetings. And every year I get super excited about the winter meetings, and I don't know why. Because the Orioles haven't done anything noteworthy at the winter meeting since 2010 when they traded for J.J. Hardy and signed Mark Reynolds. And, it's so funny that the year that is like the least active winter meetings we've seen in maybe ever is the year that the Orioles finally do something and they go and sign Craig Kimbrel. So it was lackluster, but the Orioles made a nice signing. I just expected that we were going to see maybe a trade from the Orioles. I still think that's coming, but as we get closer to the holidays, if it doesn't happen by Christmas, baseball is it's a dead zone from Christmas through the new year. So we're not going to see anything till the first or second week of January, and even then. So if the Orioles don't do something in the next week to 10 days, it could take till maybe right before spring training before anything else gets done. But I think we do all agree that a starting pitcher is on their way to Baltimore, whether trade or signing. I think more than likely it's going to be a trade. With that in mind, I want to remind you today's show is brought to you by Project Game Day and the Tyus Bowser Show. You can join Glenn, Rita, and Femi Ayambadejo right here on the same press box pages for Project Game Day following tomorrow's Ravens-Rams matchup. And join Press Box and Great Eights memorabilia for the Tyus Bowser Show this Tuesday night at Alonzo's on Cold Spring Lane in Roland Park. Both shows are brought to you by Superbook Sports, AJ Michaels, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. Ryan, more huge Orioles news this past week. And that's that Brandon Hyde was at the winter meetings. No, I'm just kidding. It's that, a couple of things that kind of tie in, right? The lease agreement still not in place. Deadline is December 31st, but there's a month-to-month temporary lease if an agreement is not reached by the deadline. So even if they hit that, they get past that 12/31 deadline. And it looks like they're going to, if you read the Baltimore Banner, they said that it looks like a new deal won't be signed until the new year. That means they're going month to month. Orioles aren't going anywhere. And of course, This is all coming from an article published Friday in the Baltimore Banner by Andy Kochka and Pamela Wood. Apparently, the governor's team began briefing key politicians on Friday, so yesterday morning, ahead of a planned public announcement, ran into opposition from Senate President Bill Ferguson. And again, I'm taking this directly from that article. Bill Ferguson said, fundamentally, I believe that the long-term lease for the use of the ballpark should not be conditioned on whether or not a private owner receives a 99-year ground lease to develop land owned by Maryland taxpayers. This is more relevant today as recent news has heightened uncertainties about the future ownership of the team. That uncertainty is based around the rumors. That is the other probably bigger thing to happen with the Orioles this past week. The rumors that Carlyle Group founder David Rubenstein or Rubenstein, I don't know how it's one or the other.
I don't know
Potato,
either, to be
potato.
honest.
A Baltimore native with a net worth of $4.6 billion, whose company, the Carlyle Group, has assets worth $386 billion. Rubenstein has begun negotiating to buy the Orioles, which got everybody excited. It was the talk of Orioles Twitter when this news came out on Thursday, I believe it was. And the situation here is everybody is tired of the Orioles being run by the Angelos family. We thought Peter was bad because he let the Orioles lose for 14 straight years, and he was willing to spend money on players, but not pitching. And the money that he did spend on players, he ended up spending a lot of times on the wrong players. And hindsight's always 2020, right? But like we saw Peter Angelos go out and sign Javi Lopez and Rafael Palmeiro and Miguel Tejada in the offseason prior to the 2004 season. We saw him give big contract extensions to Nick Markakis, Brian Roberts, and Adam Jones. But we also saw him sign Albert Bell, and that contract lasted 2 years, and he had to pay $13 million a year for a guy who had to retire at the end of the first years of that 5-year contract. He gave a boatload of money to Scott Erickson, who pitched one full season after signing that contract and had a 5.5 ERA. He gave a ton of money to Chris Davis, which is going to, in my opinion, go down as the worst contract in baseball history. What was it? 7 years, $163 million.
I think it was 161. Yeah, but he outbid himself. The original offer was 7,155.
Yep.
And he had no competition. Davis was just kind of waiting to see if anyone else would roll in, and then he upped the offer by another $7 million just for the heck of it.
Right.
And got his guy, and
right.
We all know how that turned out.
Chris Davis turned into possibly the worst position player in baseball over the course of the end of that contract, to the point where he retired early from that contract. And grateful to him for doing that to kind of get us out from under the Chris Davis albatross contract. However, at least Peter Angelos spent money. John Angelos doesn't even do that. He cares more about Camden Yards as a concert venue and more about being in the community. He listed winning baseball games, I believe, third on his list of priorities.
Yeah.
And that's the owner of the Orioles. And I hate it. And everybody else in Baltimore hates it. So now when we see that this Baltimore native who's got billions upon billions of dollars is in negotiations to buy the Orioles, everybody is so over the moon excited about it. Well, I have got to do something about that. Every time I get an email, do you guys hear the do-do-do-do thing?
Oh, I didn't, but.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just me that hears it. But we're all super excited about the idea that the Orioles could finally be out from under the Angelos family's reign of terror. Well, also in the Baltimore Banner is an article that says John Angelos, when those rumors came out about Rubenstein, called Governor Moore to let him know that the Angelos family has no intention of selling the Orioles. So, as good as we've been feeling about it, until we see otherwise, it looks like the Orioles are going to be owned by the Angelos family for the foreseeable future. I hope it's wrong. I hope he's just saying that to save face, and then he just takes his money and runs when he does sell the team. But you got to take what he says at face value until he proves otherwise. Am I right?
All right. There's a lot to take in here. Sorry for stuttering so much. This is a lot of stuff, right? First, you have the failure to sign a lease agreement for the second time after it's announced a second time we've got an agreement in place. And then for a second time, again, we find out, okay, not really. So that's one factor. And it expires at the end of the year. They have that month to month after that. Just get some pen to paper. I don't care about the logistics, the politics of it all. I just want it done so we can stop talking about it, stop having to think about it. And I think most Orioles fans are on the same page there. I understand both sides want to get the right deal. Just get it done. I don't care how. You can probably tell in my voice, I'm just exhausted by the thought of it. Just get the damn lease done and stop lying to us about it being done.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, reports that this David Rubenstein is interested or in talks, I believe the quote was, to purchase the Orioles. They did say in that Bloomberg article that things could still fall apart and this may not materialize, which naturally, yes, I get that. John Angelos comes out and calls Governor Moore, says the Angelos family has no intent to sell the team. Of course he's going to say that while they're trying to work out a lease agreement. He gets $2.5 ballpark billion put in front of him. I think his tone might change a little bit.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, according to Forbes, the Orioles are worth $1.7 billion, and they're going to sell for more than that if they do sell at all. But please continue.
Yeah, I think it'll be at least $2. And this Rubenstein, he likes to throw money around. He bought an original copy of the Magna Carta for like $21 million.
Yep.
This is the guy who has money, enjoys spending it. He's not one of these wealth hoarders that we hear about. He seems like a guy who wants to use his money for stuff. And if that means buying a baseball team and spending money on free agents, I think he's the guy to do it. Now, I'm trying not to get my hopes up because realistically, I don't think the Orioles get sold, especially not while Peter is still alive. Because, again, I don't understand the politics of it, but I know there's some kind of $200 million tax I read about if he were to pass away after the team is sold. Obviously, the family's not going to want to pay that, so they're not going to sell the team until Peter is no longer with us. There's so much. It seemed like we had 2 bouts of really good news that were almost immediately followed by our hearts being ripped out, which is, hey, we have a lease agreement. Oh, no, we don't. Hey, the Orioles are interested in selling. Oh, no, they're not. And it was just, it seemed like such an Orioles day.
Yeah.
It all happened in like a 24-hour span. Now, the long and short of it all for me is that, just my personal opinion, I want the lease to get done. I don't care what it takes. And I want someone to spend money as owner of the Orioles. If that's going to be John Angelos, fine. If these talks that Scott Boras is bringing up, that the Orioles have been contacting him relentlessly about extensions for Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holliday, if any of that materializes, I don't care who's shelling out the money. I just want someone to do it. So that's what it is for me. Obviously, it would be nice to have a last name other than Angelos signing the paychecks. But as long as someone's doing it, I don't care. I just want the Orioles to be good and in Baltimore for a long time because we haven't had that. And I want it. That's it. That's all I got. That kind of went off the rails near the end.
No, man, that's what we're here to do, man. That's what we're here to do. And I think that every Orioles fan would agree with you. Whoever is cutting the paychecks, we don't care. Just cut the checks. But pay the money. Go get these players. We don't want to hear to do these extensions. It would put the Orioles underwater without a new lease agreement, this, that, and the other. We don't want to hear that. If you're not going to spend the money, sell the team to somebody who will. And stop embarrassing us, with using Martin Luther King Day as a reason to not talk about the Orioles, and then saying you're going to open the books, and then you never open the books, and then show up in wrinkled clothes as the owner of a professional sports franchise at spring training, and then suspend Kevin Brown for reading stats that your team put together for him on Masson right after the Orioles sweep the Mets coming out of the All-Star break. Like, every single time that we're starting to feel good about this team, this dude comes out and puts his foot in his mouth to stop talking in public and start spending some damn money.
And then coming out on the night that the Orioles are about to win their 100th game and clinch the American League East, coming out and making it about you by
Yeah.
announcing on the Jumbotron that there is a 30-year agreement in place when, in fact, we find out the next day, no, there isn't.
It's a memorandum of agreement.
Yeah. How dare you
Mm-hmm.
make that night about you? That was about the players. It was about the fans. It did not have to be about your pretend lease agreement. It didn't.
Exactly. And I like that you said pretend lease agreement because it was false. It was fake. It was trying to take the limelight. And he's sitting there with not Wes Moore, but Mayor Brandon Scott in his suite celebrating and cheering things on. And it's like, you just lied to the entire state.
Yeah.
In the middle of what was supposed to be the biggest Orioles moment in 9-10 years.
Yeah.
And you just lied to the entire stadium and the entire state and the entire fan base.
I do want to say I understand that they didn't say specifically in that announcement that they had agreed to a new lease. I get that. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew the conversation that had been around it. They knew that they were telling Orioles fans, we have a deal done. And the fact of the matter is they didn't. And to do it on that night, like in the moment, it added to the joy of what was that night. It was Clinchmas. It was 100 wins. The stadium was packed. Everyone was having an awesome time. And then we get that announcement, and it adds a little bit extra. I was standing up and applauding for John Angelos, which is something I can't believe I ever would do. Yep. But I'm like, all right, they got the deal done. Awesome. Then we find out the next day, no, they didn't. Just the nerve, the gall to take that moment away from what it really was supposed to be. Yeah. It just stop. Like you said, Paul, stop embarrassing us.
Yeah. I imagine if I had been at the stadium, and I was at the stadium the night before thinking the Orioles were going to clinch, and they won, but there was another team needed to lose. I think it may have been Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay managed to pull out a victory. So the Orioles didn't clinch till the day that I wasn't there. I'm wondering if I would have stood up to applaud as well, but I wouldn't have been applauding John Angelos. I'd have been applauding the lease agreement because when they showed that on TV and everybody was applauding, and Bree Brown, we know Bree Brown, she's a good friend of ours. She posts, I can't believe I'm standing up applauding John Angelos right now, but here I am. And something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And I thought to myself, I'm not applauding John Angelos. I'm applauding the fact that the deal got done. Like, if anything, it should have been done months ago. It shouldn't have taken this long. And maybe they had this done. They wanted to wait till tonight to announce it. Even still, shame on you. They should have been done months ago. And it turns out it's not even real. And so like I said, stop embarrassing us. Either sell the team or start spending some damn money and stop talking. Just stop talking.
For the love of God.
Stop talking. Everything this guy says is worse than the last. I don't want to hear it anymore, man. I do not want to hear it. And, I'm just ready to move on. I'm just ready to move on. Look forward to the 2024 season. It seems the fans are too. Randall, if I mispronounced your name, I apologize. Randall Fracassi, he commented on the show. Should now sign Bowers for $15 to $20 million per year. No prospects given up in that, and trade for either Seattle's Gilbert, Cleveland's Williams, or Miami's Yuri Perez. Rotation fixed. You're talking about, I believe his name is Gavin Williams. Is that his name?
Gavin Williams is not getting moved by Cleveland. Yuri Perez is not being moved by Miami. Gilbert, maybe. I'm not sure the Mariners would have any interest there. But I really don't think the Orioles should be shelling out $15 million a year for Jake Bowers. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't think that move makes a ton of sense either.
I don't think he meant Bowers there. I don't think the S was supposed to be on the end of that.
Yeah. I think that where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
Yeah.
And Bauer was vindicated for the one big case, but there were 4 other women that came forward, and you're innocent until proven guilty. But like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. The guy's a pompous, arrogant ass. He knows a lot about pitching, and he's a really good pitcher.
Yeah.
But I think that for the clubhouse, for the camaraderie that you have there, I think that I think he would be a cancer in that clubhouse.
Yeah.
I just do. And I don't think signing Bauer is a great idea.
Yeah.
Um,
Now,
and
I want to say regarding the players on those other teams that the Orioles could trade for, I agree. All three of those teams, I think, would be reasonable trade targets. Now, I think if you're looking at Miami, they're not going to move Yuri Perez, but maybe the Orioles could work out a deal for a Jesus Luzardo.
sure.
The Cleveland Guardians, they're not going to move Gavin Williams. He looks like a young ace, but maybe the Orioles work out a deal for Shane Bieber. I
Yeah.
understand it's the younger, sexy names that are appealing in trade talks, but this isn't MLB The Show. We're not going to be able to make those trades for 20, 21, 22-year-old pitchers who are already established in the majors. That's just not going to happen. But yeah, I agree that those are teams that the Orioles could trade with, not necessarily those specific players.
Yeah, it's those are the types of players, a Yuri Perez, a Gavin Williams. Those are the type of players that teams are looking to trade for, not trade away. It would be like the Orioles trading away, Kyle Bradish or Grayson Rodriguez, to get, I don't know, Corbin Burns. Why are you going to give up a guy who's got less control? Why are you going to give up? Why are you going to give up a guy who has all the team control, who's young, who's got everything you're looking for in a pitcher, to get a guy who has less team control? To me, it just wouldn't make sense. What would the Orioles have to give up to get those younger guys who have all that team control? It's nice, but these teams have visions of compete. I mean, the Cleveland is a year removed from winning that division, and they've got a really young and talented lineup and a really young and talented rotation. Miami just missed the playoffs this past year. They've got a really good young rotation. The lineup needs work, but they're not going to trade those guys who would be the foundation of their teams.
Right.
They're just not going to do it. So, like you said, Bieber from the Guardians, Luzardo from Miami. That would be, the trade partners, right? The trade pieces are probably inaccurate and unlikely to happen.
Yeah,
so,
I think Gilbert could make sense, but I think it's still unlikely.
Yeah, I agree. We just want to remind you, if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. That's helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services, or call 1-800-GAMBLER if you have a gambling problem. Moving on to some other baseball news, and it's the biggest news. Oh my God, anything that the Yankees do is like the world's greatest news, according to MLB Network and anybody that covers baseball from a national perspective. They traded with the Red Sox to pick up Alex Verdugo, and it was like the story. And ESPN's unlocking the article. It's free for everyone to read. It's like, who do you guys think Alex Verdugo is? And it just goes to show how boring the winter meetings were, that a trade for Alex Verdugo, who was like a 1.8 win player last year, who's been just better than a league average hitter his entire career, that's the move that, like, oh, let's unlock this article and make it free for everyone to read. Get the hell out of here. No, like, it was between the Red Sox and Yankees, which is like an unheard of trade. It's only happened 7 times like the last 100 years. So I understand it from that perspective. But let's not act like this is a move that was more than it was. It was, a solid outfield piece, but not like a team changer by any stretch. Now, the move that the Yankees made following for Juan Soto, that's a franchise-changing move for both teams. The Yankees received Juan Soto and outfielder Trent Grisham for the Padres as part of a 7-player deal. In exchange, San Diego, the Padres, they received right-handers Michael King, Johnny Brito, and Randy Vasquez, starting pitching prospect Drew Thorpe, and catcher Kyle Higashioka. Are the Yankees back, Ryan?
No, they don't scare me anymore, man.
How can they?
They don't. They've got Soto and Judge, and then a bunch of fine hitters. It's a good move for them. Don't get me wrong. Juan Soto is one of the best players in baseball, and I'm heartbroken that he's going to be on the Yankees, and I'm going to have to root for him because he's on my fantasy team. But I mean, they've got 2 guys now. DJ LeMahieu is not who he used to be. Anthony Rizzo is not who he used to be. Giancarlo Stanton is a shell of what he used to be. I mean, Gleyber Torres is fine, I guess, but he's not, he hits homers, but he doesn't do much else. I'm not afraid of that lineup. I'm just not. I don't know. I don't know what else you want me to say. I think this makes them better, obviously, but
Hmm.
I don't think they are. I think they'll compete for a wild card spot. I don't think they're competing for the division.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I don't believe that this makes them suddenly the favorites in the division. Um, the Yankees now have two players that I would take over players on the Orioles roster: Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. And you can say, well, what about Garrett Cole? No, trust me, I would take Garrett Cole in a heartbeat. Am I taking him over Kyle Bradish or Grayson Rodriguez at this point? No. We're talking about two guys who are on the cusp. In my opinion, Kyle Bradish is already there, and Grayson Rodriguez is going to join him there at the top of the heap this year. You
Yeah.
have two guys who I think are going to be, Cy Young candidates this year. I don't know that they're going to win, but they're gonna get votes. They're going to finish, in the top five probably, in my opinion. I think the Orioles have those two guys already on the roster, and am I giving them up for Garrett Cole? Absolutely not. Not when the Orioles don't have to pay them more than league minimum for another year or two, and on top of that, they don't have to do it. They're with the Orioles for the next 5 or 6 years. Garrett Cole in his 30s, who's in the middle of a huge contract where he's making $36 million a year. No, I'm not giving up Bradish or Grayson Rodriguez in exchange for. And if you're just tuning in, this sounds like a trade that's not. It's not even been proposed. I'm talking about who would I covet on the Yankees over the Orioles players? It's really only Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. And you look at that Yankees rotation, it's crap. It's Garrett Cole and then the ghost of Carlos Rodon and Nestor Cortez. You know,
Yeah,
and,
and even Cortez was not good last year. Michael King was their best starter down the stretch. They just traded him in the deal. So I don't know. They just don't scare me. They don't.
yeah, I like cool, man. You have two. They do. They legitimately have two of the best hitters in the game, right in the heart of their order.
Yeah.
Probably batting 2 and 3 for that team. But you got other guys that are there's 7 other guys in your order, and you've got to do something about your pitching staff. And they are underwater. I mean, it's the Yankees, so they're never underwater
Right.
financially, but they were supposed to have a higher draft pick than the Orioles this year, and because of that luxury tax threshold, I think they exceeded like the third level of that. They had to their pick got sent 10 picks back, just like the Padres. And so the Orioles, who were supposed to pick 24th, now picking 22nd in the draft because of that. And so, you're giving all this money to LeMahieu, all this money to Cole, all this money to Judge, to Giancarlo Stanton. And now, you've got Soto. Are you going to be able to give him the $500 million contract that he's going to command after this coming season?
I
Like,
don't think they will.
yeah.
I think this is a rental. I really do. I
Yeah.
think he's going to hit the open market and he's going to sign elsewhere, and that's where he'll spend the rest of his career. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think this is I don't think Soto's a long-term Yankee. Now, if he plays well enough there and gets enough of those short porch home runs, maybe he'll think about signing a long-term extension. But I really think we're going to see him hit the open market at the end of the season, at which point, every team is going to be clamoring for him. And I don't think it's likely that he's a Yankee beyond the season.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they have the money to throw around, but that
Oh, sure.
luxury tax threshold, are they really going to want to keep missing out on higher draft picks, and are they really going to keep wanting to spend as much money on the luxury tax as they are on the roster? Like, to me,
Right.
it just doesn't make a ton of sense. But there's been crazier things that have happened. I want to get to a couple other comments here. Adit Mahmood, again, if I'm mispronouncing your name, I apologize. He says, I think they are setting up the dominoes to sell the team with Rubenstein and the lease, and it's about 300 to 400 million in taxes that they wait until after Peter passes that they save. Which Peter had his aortic valve collapse on him, or it was clogged back in 2017, and he collapsed. He is now, from what we hear, he's now suffering from dementia. And we're talking about a guy who's in his, I believe, late 90s now, in Peter Angelos, or at least mid 90s. And yeah, I think that we all can agree that they're probably waiting until he passes, because they are going to save hundreds of millions of dollars, and that might be when they sell. And for all we know, maybe Peter is in hospice care, and these talks came out because they're preparing the estate.
Yeah.
You don't want
The
to.
timing of it all is pretty interesting. I don't mean to cut you off, but
Mm-hmm.
the timing is interesting. And Peter did come out and say, years back, that when he does pass away, he wants Georgia to sell the team so that she can think the quote was like, enjoy the great wealth we have accumulated together or something like
Yeah.
that. So it is Peter's dying wish that the team gets sold once he's gone. Will John agree to that?
I think
That's what's to be
John
said.
clearly doesn't care about anybody's wishes but his own.
Yeah.
I think he's made that very clear. So, not that, and look, as much as people don't like Peter Angelos, I don't hate Peter Angelos. Like, I don't hate him. He did, like I said, he did spend money on the team. He just did it in the wrong places, and he let that team lose for far too long. But, the Orioles had a top three payroll in baseball for 5 seasons in the mid to late 90s. So let's not act like he was like this terrible, terrible owner. He brought playoff baseball back to the Orioles in the mid 90s. He spent more money than any owner in baseball on his team, and then it didn't work out, and he got gun shy. So I get that. I don't hate Peter Angelos. The stuff that he did with Mike Mussina and with Davey Johnson and running Pat Gillick out of town, yes, that part I hate. But overall, I don't feel the same way about him as a lot of people do. The way a lot of people feel about Peter Angelos is how I feel about John Angelos. I just think that it's a travesty what he's doing, and it wasn't that long ago that I thought that he was the right brother to run the Orioles, and now I'm looking at him like, man, can we give Lou a try? Like, can we
Right?
see what he can do? Right?
Yeah.
So,
John signs or hires Mike Elias, and I guess they agreed that Mike would have full autonomy over the baseball operations. And I was like, all right, I can get behind this John guy. Now 5 years later, I'm like, dude, go anywhere else, please.
yeah. You have another comment. We are running out of time to get to this comment, so I'm going to try and remember it for next show. Asking, could Patrick Sandoval be an under the radar trade target? We'll talk about that on next show. A little teaser for you there. I want to remind you, today's show is brought to you by Glenn Clark Radio. If you've missed anything from Glenn Clark Radio this week, check out interviews with Jaden Daniels, Adam Frazier, Daryl Moose Johnston, Rick Neuheisel, and more right now in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature at PressBoxOnline.com. Fun show. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but I think we've got them figured out. This is still a work in progress. We enjoy talking baseball, Orioles baseball with you all, and we're just trying to get the kinks worked out. This is just with this new setup that we have. It's going to be a lot of fun. We just got to get it all figured out. So thanks for bearing with us. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you to all of our listeners. Without you, we don't have a show. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we don't have a show. Ryan, thank you as always, for helping out with the show each and every week. Until next week, everybody,